The Jacques Baud case. Jacques Baud, a former Swiss colonel and intelligence officer, has become a central point of contention for those questioning the EU's commitment to free speech and the rule of law. In December 2025, the EU included Baud in its 20th sanctions package. This specific case is significant because it marks a shift in how the EU uses financial sanctions against individuals, not for physical warfare, but for information warfare. The European Council added Jacques Baud to its list of sanctioned individuals under a framework specifically targeting hybrid threats and Russian destabilization activities. The EU froze his bank accounts and credit cards within the Eurozone and imposed a travel ban on him. Since Baud reportedly resides in Brussels, the sanctions have left him in a state of legal limbo, unable to access his funds for daily living or travel back to his home country, Switzerland. The EU's reason, the official journal of the EU, states that Baud acts as a mouthpiece for pro-Russian propaganda, accusing him of spreading conspiracy theories that justify the invasion of Ukraine and undermine the security of the Union. Critics of the EU use the Baud case to argue that the Union is moving towards an authoritarian model of governance. Their arguments include punishment without a trial. Sanctions are executive decisions, not judicial ones. Baud was not charged with a crime in a court of law. He was placed on a blacklist by a political body, the European Council, based on a statement of reasons that labels him a mouthpiece for propaganda. The EU is effectively using financial execution to silence a critic. This is seen as a way to punish speech that is legal under the principle of free expression, but politically unacceptable. The message sent to other analysts and journalists is that if your views deviate too far from the official EU narrative on the war, you risk losing your livelihood and your ability to travel. In fact, the Jacques Baud case is chillingly reminiscent of how the Soviet government treated its political adversaries.
The innocent until proven guilty conflict. Critics of EU sanctions against Colonel Baud illustrate a central point regarding democracy and emphasize that rights should only be annulled by a court of law. Why else are we even defending democracy in the first place? In the case of Jacques Baud, this principle was arguably bypassed. Under current EU law, sanctions are classified as restrictive measures, not criminal punishments. This legal loophole allows the EU to freeze a citizen's bank accounts and restrict their movement without the beyond a reasonable doubt standard required in a criminal court. The Jacques Baud case illustrates the modern paradox of liberal democracy. In an era of digital and hybrid warfare, can we truly talk about democracy if it uses authoritarian-style tools, like asset freezes for speech, to protect itself? Free speech versus information manipulation. The EU's defense of its actions rests on a specific 2025 legal distinction: the difference between freedom of expression and foreign information manipulation and interference, FIMI. The EU view, the European Commission argues that they are not sanctioning ideas, but rather coordinated activities that threaten the security of the Union. They view Baud not as an independent analyst, but as an asset in a Russian hybrid campaign designed to destabilize Europe. The counterview: if a democracy is true, it must tolerate ideas that are not favorable. Critics argue that by labeling dissenting geopolitical analysis as disinformation, the EU is creating a state-sanctioned truth and punishing anyone who deviates from it. As is apparent regarding the Jacques Baud case, the EU in early 2026 has entered a new phase. It is no longer just a trade union, it is a security actor.